Ireland. We all know it, we all love it. Asterisk. I mean, what's not to like about the greenest country on earth? Everywhere you look, there are beautiful, vibrant fields of... Wait, is this the right footage? Welcome to the Burren, the part of Ireland that can't possibly exist. With some geological features so rare, I was told the only other places they can be found are parts of Indiana. And while these formations are cool, I can't in good conscience encourage you to set foot in that strange, meaningless, bearded square just to see them. Though the Burren breaks with the traditional color palette of Ireland, it still conforms with the rest of Ireland in its overwhelming beauty and its overcast weather that consistently tries to foil that beauty. I could talk for a long time about how cool all the geology is, but all you really need to know for this video is that there is an abundance of flat limestone rocks and a very delicate and extremely diverse ecosystem that many in the area are working to sustain, and that dolmens look like this and cairns look like this. So as the Irish say, or maybe just one Irish guy says, let's stop kicking the tires and give it a go. In 2009, school children in County Clare assembled to dismantle hundreds of mini dolmens and mini cairns. It's something of a fad amongst tourists to stack the limestone rocks into little structures. However, unwittingly, they're disrupting that ecosystem we talked about. Over the weeks I spent there, it captivated me. I kept coming back to the question, what is the impulse here? Why are people building these dolmens and cairns? Now, it's also important to note that not all cairns and dolmens were built by tourists. Some were built by early migrants to the Burren as guide stones or ancient monuments or religious whatever the fuck. Probably so they had something to do besides trying to grow potatoes on a fucking moonscape. But those structures were usually bigger, presumably because smaller ones got knocked over by all the stray house cats. So today, we're only talking about stacks of rocks built by tourists. I started off with two main theories: denial of death and obsession with land ownership. Ernest Becker makes the case that most of our society is built around rejecting the fact that we all have to die. Throughout their life, a person will focus on several ways they may be made symbolically immortal. They call it a causa sui project or an immortality project. I call it SV cheats one god. This immortality can be achieved through belief in an afterlife, or altering political and cultural landscapes, or achieving some great success, or drinking an invincibility potion, or apparently murdering as many people as possible in cold blood, ensuring that Netflix will make a nice sympathetic causa sui project for you and you'll live forever because the world is poison. Another one of these methods is to create something that will persist after one's death, which can manifest as a memorial to oneself. I looked at these stacks of rocks and wondered if their creators just needed a little bump of reassurance that the world wouldn't be exactly the same if they had never existed. As for land ownership, the fact is some cultures are obsessed with staking claims on land. Originally, in America, the only people permitted to participate in our democracy, we've never been a democracy, were those who owned land. Also, the Guano Islands Act, which we use to make sure no one else gains control over literal piles of shit in the middle of the ocean. So land ownership is baked pretty deeply into the American psyche. And in a more cynical thread of reasoning, I considered the possibility that tourists, particularly Americans and other land maniacs, build cairns as a way to claim that small plot of land, to mark their territory. I don't see why we can't just piss on things like a dog would, but the police have thus far disagreed with me, and jail has gotten pretty old, so fine. Also, I can't help but get the feeling that this is kind of like nano-imperialism, claiming land and destroying it in the process. It just sounds a little too familiar. About halfway through the month I spent in the Burren, I visited the Aran Islands. I was riding in one of their low-emission vehicles when I happened upon a patch of land maybe a quarter-mile long, absolutely packed with cairns. It's hard to see in the pictures, but it was honestly breathtaking how far they went. There must have been thousands. I'd never seen anything like it. This site completely defied both of my working explanations for tourist cairns. Building an individual cairn here would be as symbolically insignificant as it would be territorially meaningless. I was forced to reevaluate. Could it be that the cairns were something of a bandwagon? That is, people built them just because other people built them. Was there an Aran Islands cairn building TikTok challenge that I don't know about? This, of course, wouldn't describe how they began, but it could explain how they multiplied to such an astounding degree. Extrapolating this out, it could also be rationally posited that tourists feel they are actually supposed to build these cairns, working in the manner of the Seattle Gum Wall, a tourist attraction where people would stick their chewing gum to a wall until it built up several inches thick. This field could be mistaken for a monument, onto which tourists feel they are meant to add. Additionally, despite its disruption of the ecosystem, it's possible that the number of cairns could balloon until it actually does become a monument, which means more tourism, so there are some incentives to both removing the cairns and keeping the cairns. And there's a study being conducted by the Atlantic Technological University on the environmental impact of tourism in the Atlantic Islands. So we'll see what that shows and how they react. Now there's also a whole idea to explore that humans are part of nature and our propensity to destroy is simply nature taking its course, no different to how any other animal affects the environment, just way more destructive. But we're not gonna get into that, now or ever. I'm sure someone else has a video about it, go watch that. It was at this point I felt I needed to do some self-reflection. At several points over the weeks, I'd been given a chance to sit quietly on the limestone and think. As I looked around and considered my relationship to this environment, an impulse came into my head. An impulse to take the rocks around me and stack them up. Now, this could easily be a nervous compulsion, comparable to how when sitting in a field as a kid, I would absentmindedly tear up the grass. Or how I always mess with necklaces when I wear them. Or how I chew on wood when I'm not getting enough fiber in my diet. It's something I can do so that I'm not just sitting still. But this impulse was familiar in a different way. When I'm at dinner, sometimes I'll make little statues with my silverware. On a visit to a natural history museum, I made something of a model animal cairn. It was harder than it looks. That woolly mammoth was being a weak-ass little bitch. It seems to me that there's something satisfying, perhaps even fulfilling, about building a structure. Especially in the case of something that is not inherently architecturally sound, such as a dolmen. Something you have to balance correctly. And it has me wondering if the drive to construct is something deeply ingrained in our psyche. It's possible to some degree that the cairns and dolmens are just a midpoint on the sliding scale from babies stacking lettered bricks to the construction of skyscrapers of superfluous height. Consider Minecraft. Really? Consider Minecraft? Best-selling video game of all time, and a huge part of the game is just building structures. You can see this in Fortnite, Factorio, other games. I don't know, I don't play this shit. We're all just building. It reminds me of those orphaned beavers who get fostered and end up dragging everything into a doorway in an attempt to dam it. There you go. Look at that beaver and just forget everything I just said. You'll be a lot happier.